Hello, hello. It is Thursday and Nancy Sawyer here for Let's Coach 2023, sponsored by Life Coach University. I am a coach that helps you to master midlife and everything that comes along with it, navigating through those waters that can sometimes get muddy when we get to this part of our life. Sometimes we realize we don't really have all the tools we need to navigate what life throws at us when we reach adulthood and start with our career and families and all these things start happening. So that's how I'm here to help you. Thank you for joining me today. I'm going to let some people come in. If this is your first time with me today or your first time here, here's how it works. If you brought a question or a challenge with you today, all you have to do is click the raise hand button down below, and I can bring you up to have some one-on-one coaching. You do not have to go on camera. You can if you wish. If you would prefer, you can put a question or comment in the Q&A, and I will check that throughout the half hour we have together today. What I typically do is I bring with me a topic of conversation, something that has been on my mind or something that has been coming up with some clients I've seen recently, or with topics we've talked about in my group, the Compass Club, which is a group that meets online every Tuesday. If you have brought something today that's particularly concerning you, that you're curious about, that you'd like some information on, that you're wondering, how can I resolve this issue or this challenge, just put it in the Q&A. I'll be glad to address it from my point of view. As always, I want to remind you that I don't always have answers. I have lots of questions, and I hope you do as well. The best way to improve your life is to become an observer of yourself. Notice what is happening within you as things happen around you. How are you reacting to life? How are you reacting to situations, to relationships, to things in your life? Notice what comes up for you. Notice how you're feeling. Notice your behaviors. I say a lot, imagine that you are sitting in a movie theater and you're watching a movie. Imagine that you are the main character. If you were viewing your life as an outsider, like you were watching a movie, what would you see happening? What do you see that main character doing? Are they overreacting? Are they taking great care of themselves and making great choices and decisions? Are they repeating some unhealthy patterns or unhealthy behaviors that set them backwards? What do you see happening as you step back and become an observer of yourself? That is one way to really step into the personal growth process, is to become an observer of self. So today I wanted to talk about something I've been working on and developing. It's actually a tool called the self-care pie chart. If you've been with me before, you know that I am a great advocate of self-care. I believe fully that if we do not take care of ourselves well, we can't take care of anyone else or anything else in our life well. And as I've been developing this concept and the thought processes around it, what came to me last week was a vision of a chart, like a pie chart, and how there are all different sections, all different pieces of pie. And I've been thinking about, for myself, what are those important pieces of the pie that are part of my self-care? And the reason this is so important is because when we go into any interaction, whether we're interacting, going to our job, going to work, to our career, working on our career, whether we're interacting with our spouse or our partner, or with our children, or with our neighbors, or going into a meeting with the principal of the school, or going to a volunteer organization where we volunteer our time, going to any group that we may be a part of, even when we're going to spend time with ourselves? How can we show up to all these places as a great version of ourselves? You know how sometimes things just seem to really fall into place. You seem to have a great day. Everything's going well. What I try to do is every day I try to give myself what I need to thrive so that everything can go well. You see, we have so much power to create our experience. And so when we take the time to focus on our self-care, then we can create a better experience of life for ourselves. So there are questions I want to ask you about your self-care. My pie is broken down into 6 sections. And you may have the same sections, or you may have different sections or categories, I guess is what we should call them. So first I have nutrition. How am I eating? Am I eating well? Am I eating healthily? Am I feeding my body good things? I have right now my lemon water that I drink. I just put water and I put it in mason jars and I slices of lemon in it and I keep it in the fridge. And then I pour it out into other glasses and I drink it throughout the day. It really feels like a treat. It feels something a little extra special than just regular water. And it's healthy, helps to clean out your system a little bit. So what are you doing for your nutrition? What are you doing to keep your body healthy from a nutrition standpoint? Are you getting enough protein? Are you getting enough fruits and vegetables? Are you having too much sugar, too much salt? Do you pay attention to these things? Do you follow a meal plan at all? Do you do intermittent fasting? That's something that I'm actually seeking to learn more about and am going to start doing probably in the next couple of weeks. Right now, I'm doing some research on it and trying to figure out a plan that's best for me. And I'm going to try a few different things. So nutrition is one piece of that pie or category that helps to keep us in a good space, because if we're not getting the right nutrition, that affects our focus, that affects if we're tired, if we show up energetic or sluggish. Another piece of the pie or category is rest and downtime. How much rest do you need? Do you know? Have you monitored that? Are you feeling tired oftentimes? Do you feel energized? So rest and downtime, they're 2 different things, but rest is one thing that, for me, I need 7 to 8 hours of sleep a night. I have my sister, for example, she says she only needs 5 hours of sleep a night. I believe her because that's what she says. Although to me, I'm like, wow, that's not enough. But if it works for her, that's great. So what I want you to know, and I always say this, is that everyone has our own unique needs. We all show up with very unique things we bring to the table and unique things that help us to thrive. So have you paid attention to this? Have you tracked your sleep, how much you're sleeping and how much sleep you need? When do you feel really great? When do you show up and feel energetic? When you have those days where you're feeling physically great, have you gotten a lot of sleep? Have you tracked that? Downtime is also really important, right? We don't want to be constantly stressed out, going from one thing to the other over and over and over with no breathers in between. So please allow yourself as much downtime as you need. And again, for each one of us, that is going to look different. Another piece of our self-care pie that I have here is connections and relationships. We are, as human beings, we are social beings. It's important that we have connection with others. So for your self-care, what type of connection do you need? Do you have to, be on the phone with someone every day? Do you have to have a weekly phone call with your parent or your sibling or someone else in your life, a great friend? Do you have a need to get together outside your home with friends once a week, once a month? What does that look like for you? I encourage you to think about that. What are your social needs? Connecting. Relationships is also a very important piece, right? If you are in a relationship with someone, how are you fostering, nurturing that healthy relationship? Are you making time for that relationship to thrive and to grow? Or are you having it as an afterthought? Another piece of the pie is movement and exercise. How are you helping your body to feel good, to feel rejuvenated? Do you work out? Do you get exercise regularly? Perhaps you have a job that's fairly sedentary. Maybe you're sitting at a desk for 8 hours a day or longer. Do you sit at work at a desk all day, and then do you come home and sit on the couch and watch television? What are you doing to move your body throughout the day? I like to get up every couple of hours and move. I may take a 5 or 10 minute walk outside. Sometimes I do my 50-10 pattern, where if I know I have a day where I'm on the computer a lot, I will set my timer on my phone for 50 minutes, 50 minutes, and I'll work straight through for that 50 minutes. And then I get up for the last 10 minutes of the hour. I will get up and go for a walk outside or somewhere like in nature. Sometimes I just stand in the deck, but I get up and do some movement so that I'm not sedentary for hours at a time, because I know for me, that doesn't work very well. I also tend to lose focus. When I sit still and sit sedentary for too long, I tend to lose focus and get distracted. So that 50-10 pattern for me works. It helps to keep me focused for 50 minutes. And then I can get up and move around, get some sun on my face, get some fresh air, and then go back at it. Another piece of the pie that I have on mine is routines. Routines and input. So I have a morning routine that I do. I have coffee in the morning. I read a few pages of whatever book I'm reading at the time. I'm always reading a self-help book or a spiritual book. I don't read fiction. I read something self-help or spiritual. Right now I'm reading Time Warrior by Steve Chandler. And so I'll read a few pages of a book. I like to absorb, to just read a few pages. And then as I learn something new, I try to integrate that into my day or sort of process through it, think about it a little bit during my day. That for me seems to be a really good system. I also like to work out or run if I can in the morning. Right now, my schedule's been a little bit, excuse me, my schedule's been a little bit off kilter because life has been throwing a lot of things at me recently for the past 6 or 8 weeks. So you've heard me say it before, I'm in a season of super busyness. Things are kind of upside down. I know it will settle down. So sometimes during these times when they get busy, some things have to kind of go by the wayside. We can't always function at our optimum level when things get super busy or when life throws us things that kind of knock us off kilter. So for me, I've had a couple of deaths in the family in the past couple of weeks, and it's also been my daughter's senior year. So, and there's been a lot of busyness anyway, and then throw in a couple of deaths in the family, and that really, it just takes a toll on you. Number one, the grieving, personal grieving that has to happen. And then time-wise, to attend certain services, to help plan those services, and then also to help support other family members who are also grieving. So that leaves me feeling extra tired lately, and also is having me, there are some balls I have to put down. I can't continue to juggle all the balls I have in the air when these things get thrown at me. So sometimes we have to put things down for a little bit. And that's part of self-care as well. part of self-care is saying, you know what, I have to slow down for a little bit. I cannot continue to do all these things because I'm going to not do them well. When we try and juggle too much, that's sometimes when everything kind of falls, right? If you envision actually physically juggling balls, maybe you can do 2, maybe you can do 3. Some people can do 4 or 5. I can do 2. That's about my limit. But if you envision a juggler, right? And they're juggling 2 or 3 or 4 and everything's going right. And they're like, okay, I got this. And then someone throws in another ball. Sometimes you lose it, right? So what you want to do for this self-care is make sure, especially when life is throwing things at you, that you're intentionally maybe putting some things down, reassessing, saying, you know what, maybe I don't need to do all these things right now. Maybe I need to put this off for a few months, or put this off till fall, or put this off till spring, whatever it may be, right? We all have priorities. It's okay to reprioritize. Just because something was your top 1, 2, or 3 priority last month doesn't mean that you can't change that this month as circumstances change, as environmental situations change, right? Circumstances are everything outside of you. And then there's also what goes on internally, right? So internally is how we're responding to the environmental factors, to the circumstances that are outside of us. What's coming up for us? I had started this year taking on a new project, job, if you will, of becoming a certified workout instructor. And I knew that this was something that was important to me. And I knew that it would kind of make my schedule a little ping pong ballish, but it was important for me. And I knew that as I got into it, I would settle into the routine. And I started in January, and it became a little bouncy, and I've been settling in. And I knew it was going to be a busy year with my daughter's senior year and all the things that come along with that. But what happened is I also had several deaths in the family. In February, I lost someone very close to me. And then just 2 weeks ago, I lost someone else very close to me. And 2 days after that, someone else very close to me. And so while I was okay with the juggle, I anticipated the juggle I was going to have with this new job and these new positions and figuring things out. I knew it was going to be a lot to juggle this year, but I was confident I could handle it. However, when life threw these extra things at me, I realized I cannot handle all of this. So there have been some things I've had to put down. There have been some projects I started that I said, you know what, I am going to have to put this off until the fall. Even though it was a priority for me, last month or 2 months ago, I have said, I cannot give my full attention and focus to this project at this time. So I'm going to move this down the scale. Sometimes we think that we have to do it all, and we don't. So make sure you're paying attention. You're paying attention to your self-care, that you're taking care of you instead of constantly trying to take care of everybody else, right? Sometimes we say, oh, geez, I committed to doing that, so I'm going to keep going. I'm not going to let that go. And I committed to doing this, and I committed to doing X and Y and Z. And now someone else is asking me to do A and B. And sometimes we get caught up with that people pleasing. Oh, if I say no, they'll be disappointed. If I say no, they'll be angry at me. If I say no, what then, right? So again, this is a reminder to pay attention to your self-care. Pay attention to your commitments. Are you overcommitting yourself? Are you allowing yourself time so that you can get your proper rest, so that you can eat healthily? You can feed your body. You can feed your brain. Do you have that morning routine or that nighttime routine that helps to settle you in at night and helps you to sleep well? Sometimes people say, I don't have time for self-care. I don't have time to exercise. I don't have time to do the food prep and to eat right. I don't have time to do a nighttime routine. And if you feel that way, I encourage you to maybe track what you're doing for a couple days. Take a little notebook, a little something, and take 2 or 3 days. If you can do it for a week, great. Just note what you're doing every couple hours. Just say, oh yeah, I just did this for a couple hours. Then I just did this for a half hour. Then I just did this. And then start to notice, review it. Are there things in there that are time sucks, time wasters, that you could delegate to someone else, that you don't really need to be doing, but that you do just because you've always done? What are these things? What are the things that you're taking on as an extra, something that you have to do, perhaps an extra burden that maybe you don't need to do? Because if you don't have time for self-care, then you might not be showing up as a great version of you for all the things that are your priorities. There's a little question here. I'm just going to comment. I'm just going to read this. Okay. Thank you. Self-care is so important, and I'm happy you talk about this today. This is off topic, but I'm hoping you can offer some wisdom around this. Okay. So here we go. I noticed recently that when I'm with a specific person, they trigger me all the time. I then react, and after the altercation, I kick myself for not taking the high road and walking away or shutting down the conversation. How do I learn to manage this in myself? This is not a person I can avoid. Okay, that's a great question. So let's address it here. So this is one person that triggers you all the time. And sometimes you react, and then afterwards you kick yourself. So you're regretting your reaction, right? You're regretting your immediate reaction to whatever it is that they trigger you with. So how can you prepare yourself? This is what I would say. When you know you're going to be around this person, whether it's someone you work with or someone they're from home, they're at home or wherever they are, if you know you are going to be around them, what can you do before you're about to interact with them? Is it taking a few breaths and reminding yourself, okay, I'm going to see, Susie right now, or I'm going to work right now and Susie's going to be there and I know I'm going to be triggered. Let's take a couple of deep breaths, prepare ourselves so that we're in a calm state of mind when we're about to go into that interaction. The other thing is, once they speak or come to you with whatever their thing is, instead of responding, take a deep breath before you respond. Maybe you count to 5. Maybe you count to 10. Maybe you have a prepared response. Maybe your prepared response might sound like, thanks for bringing that up. Let me think about that and I'll get back to you later. Or let me look into that. Can I get back to you in 5 minutes? What is your pre-canned response that you can have ready? Maybe you have 4 or 5 of them. You know what? Thanks for mentioning that. I'm going to think about that and I'll get back to you. It can be something that basically puts off your response or your reaction. That allows you to breathe, to process without reacting immediately. So sometimes the best reaction is no reaction. So what can you do to prepare yourself before you're going to be interacting with them? And then the other thing that I would mention is, you say you kick yourself for not taking the high road or for not walking away. So every time you do this, you can learn from that. Every time after you have the reaction or after you interact with them, you can examine it. How did that go? What could I have done a little bit better? And how can I prepare myself for next time? Look, we're human and no one is perfect. And no matter how well prepared we are, there are going to be times where we're caught off guard, where we react instead of intentionally create. One of the things when I talk about my pause technique is taking a breath and shifting to a great version of you. So again, before you are going to interact with this person, how can you take a breath, remind yourself, okay, I know sometimes I get triggered with them around. How can I shift to a great version of myself here? What is my win-win in this situation? Maybe the win for you is just to be able to keep your mouth zipped and to not react. Maybe your win is to choose to say something kind or empathetic instead of reacting in anger or frustration. Maybe for you, that win looks like just saying, hey, good morning, and walking right by them instead of stopping to engage in some gossip or whatever they're trying to drag you into. What does your win look like? Think about that and really get intentional with it before you interact with them. If you don't know that when you're going to interact with them, if they randomly call you on the phone, what can you do, again, to keep yourself in a good headspace? And back to tie it back to the self-care. When we are in a good space ourselves, when we are feeling healthy, when we are feeling well-rested, nourished, then we are more likely to show up and be able to have a positive interaction with someone. Because if we're overtired, if we're hungry or hangry, right? If we feel rushed and we don't have a nice routine to set our day up well, we are going to be shorter. We're going to be more impatient. We are going to be more reactionary. So again, to tie it back, what do you need to keep yourself in a great space so you can show up as a great version of you? One last thing about this other person, especially if there's someone who triggers you. A lot of times, what triggers us in others is something that needs to be healed within ourselves. So think about if there's something that triggers you from someone else, you want to ask yourself about that trigger. What does that mean? Why am I so upset by this? Why did that throw me off? Why did that set me off? What was it? What am I actually upset about? Is it because they came in late to work? Or is it because there's something else, because I feel taken advantage of, right? So ask yourself, get very curious about what's happening for you, why this person is triggering you. Sometimes what happens is what triggers us in another person, what annoys us in another person is something about ourselves that we are unhappy with. I remember there was a time a couple of years ago when I was really upset with my kids, and I was so upset about them leaving their stuff everywhere. And when I got close and when I got curious and asked myself questions, I realized I was actually leaving a lot of things everywhere. And I was just as upset at myself as I was at them. So sometimes these triggers or the things that upset us are information. They're little tidbits of information of what am I doing? What behaviors am I doing that I'm not proud of, or that I wish I could improve upon, or that are bothering me? All food for thought there. I hope this has been helpful. And thank you. It says this has been very helpful. And yes, also love the quick responses. Going to write out a few. Yeah. keeping that list of quick responses just in your head at the ready, add some go-tos, is a way that you can sort of prepare yourself for whatever's going to come your way. All right, I am going to wrap this up. I don't see any other questions coming through. So please take care of you today. And again, I am Nancy Sawyer. You can find me at nancybsawyer.com. I'm here to help you master midlife. And this has been Let's Coach 2023, the Thursday 1 p.m. edition. And I will be here next Thursday. I'm here every Thursday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Please go to lifecoachuniversity.com. There are many, many great coaches on there, all different topics, different talks, and different coaches every day of the year for Let's Coach 2023. So I hope to see you again. Have a great day.